Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Well, we've got a couple of excellent stories for you today. I hope everyone's having a nice, relaxing Sunday, spending some time with your family, getting back in touch with who you are when you're not at work 5 days a week. Maybe you've got some pets, chilling with the dogs, and that's what I've been doing. So last night we had another great show here on the live stream, but of course, President Trump had his rally in Wisconsin, so there was a lot of viewers that checked that out in the first hour. I can't blame them. I wish that I could have watched it myself, but I went back and I did later, and my friend Methods was able to catch this excellent little nod to us and our favorite Anon. Take a look at this little clip from the video last night. That was probably the most epic air cue that we've seen so far. He went slowly around in a circle and then punctuated it with a nice, solid dash. Gotta love it. Thank you so much, Mr. President. And before we get into the next story on Attorney General Barr, we have a quick word from my sponsor. Do you guys ever wake up with a stiff neck or find yourself trying to relieve tension in the middle of a workday? Well, I have, and neck pain sucks. I totally get it. The neck hammock is great because it's a simple, portable device that uses cervical traction to provide neck pain release in just 10 minutes or less each day. That's right, just 10 minutes. Cervical traction works by stretching your muscles to release that built-up tension, and it's the most effective way to alleviate neck pain and has been used by physical therapists and chiropractors for decades. And with the neck hammock, you can have it anywhere, anytime you want. Alleviate tension headaches, relieve pinched nerves, reduce herniated discs, relieve overall pressure, and melt away tension. The neck hammock does it all, and it feels amazing. I've used it. I can say that it works. It's so amazing that test users started falling asleep in them. Setup is really easy. You just wrap the strap around a railing, squeeze it between a door hinge, or hook it on a door handle and clip the cord and relax. If you have 10 minutes, you have time to get rid of neck pain for good. You can try it yourself at www.supportyourneck.com. All right, so Louie Gohmert showed up this morning on Fox, and he's talking about investigating the investigators. Before I read what Methods selected here, we're going to go ahead and take a listen to what Representative Gohmert had to say.
So you'll be in that committee room,
of course,
controlled by Democrats, Jerry Nadler, on Thursday.
That's the way it is.
They're bringing, that's right. Bringing the Attorney General before the committee. What do you expect?
I expect that since there's more Democrats than there are Republicans, they're going to spend all their time beating up on Barr and wanting to continue the hoax the president was talking about. And rather than hoax, I think a better word would be projecting. It's what Clinton made famous. You do something wrong, and then you project that conduct on your opponents, as they're doing. Now we know there was Russia collusion. There was a Russia conspiracy, collusion not being illegal. We know that there was Fusion GPS hired by the Clinton campaign. They hired Nellie Orr, wife of Bruce Orr, one of the top guys at the FBI. They hire a foreign agent, former MI6 Christopher Steele. He didn't even go to Russia. He's talking by phone and email to Russian agents. That's a conspiracy. That's collusion. They're the ones that had the Russia conspiracy to try to take down Trump.
So will that come up in the hearing this week?
Oh, you bet it will. You bet it will, because that's really what went on here.
Well, if I had to guess, I'd say it's a pretty safe bet that our friend, Representative Louie Gohmert, is part of the team. Where have you heard that before? There's been a lot of people inside President Trump's inner circle, trusted people that have been using these turns of phrase that we've come to know so well over the past 2 years. Now, if you take a look at the board, or qmap.pub, then you will see there are quite a few posts that have to deal with projection. Why does Hussein continue to proudly state his administration was scandal-free? Define projection. Russia, the real conspiracy. Define projection. What happens when they lose control and the truth is exposed? What happens when people no longer believe or listen to the fake news controlled media? controlled Hollywood, controlled blue checkmark Twitch shills, etc., etc. The Great Awakening, sheep no more, we the people, for God and country we fight. Define projection, the attribution of one's own ideas, feelings, or attitudes to other people or to objects, especially the externalization of blame, guilt, or responsibility as a defense against anxiety. The forming of a plan, scheming. Define psychological projection, a theory in psychology in which the human ego defends itself against unconscious impulses or qualities, both positive and negative, by denying their existence in themselves while attributing them to others. Projection is exactly the game plan for Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. As Louie Gohmert said, it's exactly what Clinton has done the entire time. She developed this as a strategy. This was their number one go-to plan, and now everything has come out. And I'll bet that if Attorney General Barr makes it to this hearing on Thursday, it's going to be explosive. We will have all kinds of incredible clips to listen to from our friends on that panel. Now, the reason I say if Attorney General Barr makes it, it's just come out that Barr has warned the House Dems that he may not appear at the hearing this week, and Nadler is, of course, threatening a subpoena. Now, he said that he may not show up and skip the scheduled hearing in front of the House Judiciary Committee because he said that the Democrats need to alter the proposed format of the hearing after the committee scheduled an extra round of questioning. The way it works is each member of the Judiciary Committee will have 5 minutes of questioning, but Chairman Jerry Nadler added an additional round that would allow both sides to question Barr for 30 minutes each. And Nadler's also proposed additional questioning in a closed-door session to discuss the redacted material in Robert Mueller's report. And now, according to a report from CNN and confirmed by The Hill, Barr rejected that additional 30-minute round in the closed-door questioning. However, a deal may be reached before the scheduled hearing on Thursday. And of course, Nadler's pushing back, and he's threatening Barr with compelling him with a subpoena. On Sunday, Nadler said that Barr would not dictate the format of the Judiciary Committee. The witness is not going to tell the committee how to conduct its hearing, period. Jerry Nadler getting a little defensive there. Nadler, of course, threatened to use that subpoena power if Barr refuses to comply. Then we'll have to subpoena him, and we will have to use whatever means we can to enforce the subpoena. A Republican spokesman for the House Judiciary hit back at Nadler's circus hearing format and said the only thing apparently that will satisfy Democrats who refuse to read the less redacted report is to have staff pinch hit when a cabinet official appears before us. What actual precedent is there for our committee making such demands of a sitting Attorney General as part of his oversight duties? The Attorney General isn't a fact witness, and this committee's investigations, as Democratic leadership reminds us daily, don't constitute impeachment. So Democrats have yet to prove their demands anything but abusive and illogical in light of the transparency and good faith the Attorney General has shown our committee. And of course, Barr is scheduled to testify on Wednesday. So this is just another power play. Nadler is attempting to, show off for the public, wants to make it look like, he's pushing hard for this information. There's nothing else that's going to come out, Nadler. You've got your report. It's redacted because that's the law. You're going to have to deal with it. And Barr is not one to be pushed around. That's why he is definitely showing a little bit of resistance here. He's not going to be told what to do. He's not going to be forced into an extra hour of battering or an extra half hour of battering, and Nadler is just going to have to deal with it. This is completely different from when Eric Holder refused to testify during the Fast and Furious questioning on those committees. That was legitimate crimes that the committees were attempting to provide oversight over so that they could get to the bottom of it. This has already come out. The report's there. Nadler has it. And there's no there. There's nothing in the report. You're going to get under that redacted portion, Jerry, and I think you're not going to like what you find. Now, speaking of that redacted portion of the report, this is something from the Clover Chronicle. It was from a post on a board that came out, I believe, like a week ago. And I don't know if it's true or not, but it's very, very interesting. I went over it a little bit on the live stream last night with Quite Frankly, but it's a bit lengthy, so I didn't get into the whole thing. So basically, an insider from Mueller's team has come out and said that the redacted portions of the report are much more interesting than you think. It's someone who claims to be part of that Russian collusion investigation. They posted several strange messages on a message board that people are familiar with. And he said throughout these 7 posts in total that the redacted portions are going to be very interesting. So I'm going to read through what they said because the entire length of the message is very interesting. As you may have noticed, there are many redactions found throughout Mueller's Russian interference report that was released just days ago. Attorney General William Barr and his team, I am not sure of the specifics, sifted through the documents and blacked out many things which might harm ongoing matters. Sure, some of the items that were redacted would harm sensitive ongoing investigations or reveal personal information. Other redactions, though, are just outright strange. Let me explain. You see, early on in the investigation, Mueller found out that there was absolutely no collusion between President Trump, his 2016 campaign, or anyone else affiliated with it and the Russian government. There was zero proof of collusion. Nada. Nothing. The thing is, Mueller was so pressured by certain notable politicians, you can likely guess their names, as well as high-profile and very influential executives from mainstream media corporations, to find anything, and when I mean anything, that would link Trump to Russia. Mueller was a decorated Vietnam veteran and had served his country in many other capacities. He was a man of integrity, but as you'll soon learn, he eventually buckled in the end. Upon reporting his initial non-findings when it came to Russian collusion, the political and mainstream news media hacks were furious. They demanded he continued to search for evidence even if it took years. So that's what he did. The second volume of the report basically reads as a Wikipedia entry. It has a ton of information and citations, but if you look very closely, those citations come from very unorthodox sources when it comes to a federal investigation of this magnitude. They're not just grand jury testimonies or witness interviews. They're from certain media outlets who some would consider unreliable at best. This is what Mueller spent most of his time on, developing a sort of narrative that would get him off the hook as special counsel when it was finally revealed that there was no collusion, and also satisfying the politicians and MSM execs that constantly annoyed him by demanding to hear the latest gossip about the case. From a political perspective, you can imagine how the Democrats would salivate over the mere possibility that a Republican president colluded with a foreign entity, especially one they despise so much. Their ultimate goal during his first term in office was obviously impeachment and removal. If that failed, Plan B would be to hamper his 2020 re-election bid. This is what we are seeing now with the obstruction of justice angle, which in my opinion is completely ridiculous. From a business perspective, an investigation that lasted years would give them endless talking points every day and night on their silly shows. You have the liberal side, who, like the Democrats, cannot stand the POTUS. Day after day, night after night, they discussed Mueller's investigation and the possibility that Trump would finally be found guilty of collusion, removed from office, and even thrown in prison. This was their secret dream. Then you had the conservative side, which was obviously the underdog, but make no mistake about it, they too benefited from the investigation. They used the opportunity to go on the defensive and stick up for President Trump, and the evening shows in particular. It was a David versus Goliath type situation. It was great for ratings on both ends and brought in tons of revenue. Ultimately, if you have even half a brain in your head, you'd realize it's all a dog and pony show, two sides of the same coin. TPTB is a real concept, but I digress. As for certain redacted portions of the report, I can say you should focus on a few fully redacted pages. This is where AG Barr, I'm sure, was shaking his head and thinking to himself, WTF. The first actually starts on page 129, page 341 in the PDF, and page 130 or 342 in the PDF. Without getting into too many specifics, this portion of Volume 2 surprisingly has to do with the current status of a certain Supreme Court justice. You see, from all the pressure Mueller received to produce evidence of wrongdoing which never existed, the scope of the investigation as a whole was infinitely extended, i.e. no topics were off limits. Mueller knew certain portions of the report would certainly be redacted, this being one of them. To summarize, these particular pages were actually strategically placed inside Volume 2 to cause confusion because while reading the full unredacted version, you'd see the topic or subject's context would suddenly change, along with the dates of the occurrences, jumping from around 2015, 2016, 2017 to 2018, and even 2019. The information contained within these 2 pages tells of that justice's current grim condition and how there has been an ongoing cover-up. Certain prominent individuals want to make sure she is still technically alive as long as possible, even past 2024. if Trump happens to be reelected. One angle of the cover-up is to push periodic news articles touting her good health and recovery, as well as publishing doctored photos and even videos. To my knowledge, the technology we possess now is mind-blowing. It is virtually impossible to distinguish between what is real and what is fake, even when it comes to video footage or deep fakes and audio or voice recognition. Now, this calls to mind a couple of different things. This is a fair summation of exactly what the mainstream media and the D's strategy has been thus far, because we have seen this. We had those supposed sightings. We had the footage that was shown from TMZ that was struck on my channel on multiple occasions, so I had to take it down. But it was supposedly 2 different sightings a month apart, but it was the exact same video footage. And it seemed to be very similar to footage that had been shown of her from maybe a year or 2 prior to that. And of course, we also had the audio from the oral arguments of the Supreme Court that was shown to be reproduction audio. It was the exact same segment of the justice's words in her voice, but in 2 different places. It was exactly the same, and we know that because there was actually a little bit of bleed over from Justice Sotomayor that came in at the exact same time. It was like that justice was interrupting the other justice, and they duplicated it. They put it in 2 different places. Only reason that I can think that they would do that would be to cover up for the fact that she was not actually there and they were using recorded footage. Now back to the article. This would not be hard for them to cover up, and it is interesting how Mueller chose to reveal this information in a report about a supposed Russia collusion investigation. As I've already said, the scope pretty much went out the window early on, because he had to keep it going for as long as possible. That's the only rational conclusion I can come up with. Now, let's move on to something even stranger. The next topic is somewhat broken up into different segments throughout Volume 2. The first part starts on page 133, second on page 155, and eventually ends in Appendix D. During the course of Mueller's investigation, even after he knew for a fact that Trump and anyone he was associated with did not collude with Russia or any other foreign entity, a certain couple visited the office. They identified themselves as Mr. and Mrs. Clandethu, which seemed like a very strange last name. And I do want to mention here that Clandethu, not Clandethu, but switch the A and the E. Clandethu is the name of the planet that the bugs are from in Starship Troopers. Great book. The Clandethus, dressed in traditional 1940s attire and exhibited an odd demeanor. The only reason why Mueller and a select few members of his team agreed to meet with them was because they claimed to have intimate knowledge of facts pertaining to alleged collusion between President Trump and Russia. At this point, it seemed as though Mueller was desperate for anything. As one of the individuals allowed into the office during this particular meeting, I was tasked with taking copious notes of the interaction. What the Clandethus revealed was startling, to say the least. They discussed their knowledge about certain individuals who were being investigated in the case as it pertained to collusion. This shocked Mueller, as there was no way they could have known such information. They then continued and confirmed what was already known. Trump and his 2016 campaign team had done nothing wrong. At this point, Mueller looked disappointed, but quickly questioned them about their previous knowledge of subjects they were not supposed to know about, that was supposed to be confidential or on a need-to-know basis. The Clandethus explained how they were psychics and clairvoyants. They told of stories about large caverns located dead center in Antarctica that led to the Hollow Earth, aka Agartha, and how certain entities and governments across the world, including the U.S., had already known about this and took exhaustive measures to make sure the general public would never find out the truth. They discussed ancient civilizations that predated Sumer and how they were even more technologically advanced than we are today. They had harnessed the power of the atom and even surpassed it with a type of dark matter destructive technology that eventually led to their demise and total eradication. That's why no ruins or evidence of them have ever lived on Earth. The couple, all in rapid succession, fast-forwarded to the moon landing in 1969. They explained how it was the first and only moon landing. Astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin had discovered something very disturbing during their 2.5-hour jaunt on the surface. Controllers back on Earth scrambled to bring them back as quickly as possible. When they finally splashed down in the ocean, they were quarantined for 3 months to make sure they had not brought back with them something extraterrestrial in nature. During this time, the government was working with the media to orchestrate an elaborate cover-up of the event by using fake footage, body doubles, etc. So, finally, The Clandethus continued on with their ramblings, but Mueller stopped them. Even though he had served as the director of FBI, he was not privy to certain information. Like the rest of us, it did seem as if he somewhat believed what the couple was telling him, but it was just way off track and had nothing to do with the investigation at that point. Regardless, he included scraps of information they provided in his report for documentation purposes. My guess is A.G. Barr read those portions and thought Mueller had gone absolutely insane. To protect his reputation, he naturally redacted it. Even though Barr has offered to show various politicians an unredacted version of the report in a secure reading room, I seriously doubt this will happen. There is just too much strange and out-of-context information contained within that it might actually taint its credibility as a whole. You can either believe what I've told you or think it's utter rubbish and pure fiction. It does not matter to me. I will not be making any more posts after this. So, one of two things. This is either rubbish or this is true. This is dead on. Here's Clandethus right there, and there is Earth. Clandethus is obviously on the other side of the solar system, and it's a planet populated by warrior bug race. So I know that this could be totally fake, you guys, but I thought that it was great reading. It was, if it is fake, then this person has a very generous imagination, really came up with some real winners here. But what I think is going to be very interesting is to see what happens when the status of that SCOTUS finally comes to light, and if this, confirms that in any way. Also, if the report is ever finally fully redacted, given that these ongoing matters will eventually come to an end, will these portions ever be opened up entirely? And will we see what's actually under there? Now, I suppose that there is no way to determine whether or not the person who wrote this stuff is telling the truth or if it is all fiction. But nonetheless, either way, I thought that it was an excellent read, and I wanted to share it with you guys. Now, here we have one more brilliant clip that my friend Methods found of Admiral Rogers speaking. I believe these are to some men and women of the NSA, if not maybe the broader intelligence community. We can see that Patrick Shanahan is sitting there on stage with him. But this is from 2018, and Methods says, "Knowing what we know now, check this out." Let's take a listen to Admiral Rogers.
To the men and women of the National Security Agency and the service cryptologic elements and the broader global SIGINT enterprise, thank you for what you do for this nation. We have had a challenging time in the past 4 years. I can remember one time sitting there talking to the leadership team at NSA as we were thinking to ourselves, so how are we going to deal with some of this? And as my family knows, I love movies and I love music. And one of the things that struck me was Apollo 13. When people are saying, oh, this is terrible, we're going to lose the crew, we're going to lose the mission. And the then mission commander turns to the group and says, this will not be our worst day, this will be our best day, because we will not define ourselves by adversity, but we will define ourselves how a group of motivated men and women come together to make a difference for this nation, our friends, and our allies. And you have done that in spades. This nation entrusts us with an amazing set of capabilities. We are given access to data of incredible sensitivity. We must continue to safeguard that, ensure the appropriate security, and to remember the trust the nation places in us. We execute our critical mission of foreign intelligence and cybersecurity at NSA within a legal framework and a set of policies that we follow to the letter. That is our strength. That is what generates the confidence of this nation, that these many resources that are granted to us are being used appropriately, wisely, and in the best interests of the citizens we serve.
Now, watching that, knowing what we know now, looking back on everything that we've been shown, everything that we've been dropped over the last 2 years, Admiral Rogers is one of the most honorable men that we have ever had the pleasure to allow to serve in our government. And he said, how are we going to deal with this? Well, I think it's obvious now that they dealt with it through the operation that has come to be known as QAnon. Also, he's a big fan of movies and music. I wonder if he's a fan of Magic Sword, and if he's also, if White Squall is one of his favorite movies. I would not doubt it. I've said very recently here that I thought that Admiral Rogers was actually a part of the team, and this clip right here encapsulates for me that belief to an even greater degree. Thank you so much, Methods, for finding this and bringing it to my attention. Now, on the note of how are we going to deal with this, it looks like the Guantanamo Bay admiral has been fired due to a loss of confidence. The commander of the Joint Task Force that operates the detention camps at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, has been fired, U.S. Southern Command has announced on Sunday. Rear Admiral John Ring, commander of Joint Task Force Guantanamo, was relieved Saturday by Southcom Commander Admiral Craig Fowler due to a loss of confidence in his ability to command, officials said in a release. Army Brigadier General John Hussey, deputy commander of JTF Gitmo, is now serving as acting commander. This change in leadership will not interrupt the safe, humane, legal care and custody provided to the detainee population at Gitmo, officials said in a statement. A spokesman for Southcom told Military.com that Ring has been temporarily assigned duties at the command's Miami headquarters, pending forthcoming permanent reassignment. He would not comment on the reasons for Ring's relief of any additional action that might be taken. Ring took command of JTF Gitmo in April of 2018. A naval flight officer, he was commissioned in 1988 and previously served as the executive assistant to the Navy's Director of Air Warfare. He has also completed command tours with the carrier Nimitz, the dock landing ship Comstock, and Carrier Airborne Early Warning Squadron 113. According to his command biography, Ring's awards includes the Legion of Merit, Defense Meritorious Service Medal, and Meritorious Service Medal, and he is a past recipient of Hawkeye NFO of the Year and Navy and Marine Association Peer Selected Leadership Award. JTF Gitmo has had 17 commanders since its creation in 2002. And it currently has 40 detainees. Perhaps he was relieved because he could not deal with the fact that there are going to be quite a few additional detainees coming into Gitmo before too long. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what kind of information we can find out about the new commander of Gitmo. Here he is, Brigadier General John F. Hussey. He enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in June 1984, and he served in the reserve until 86. He continued his service in the New York Army National Guard, where he attended OCS in 1988 and branched as a military police officer. So he's served in Desert Storm. Looks like his military education includes Military Police Officer Basic and Advanced, Psychological Operations Course, Civil Affairs Advanced Course, Combined Armed Service Staff School, Command and General Staff College, Air War College, U.S. Army War College, and he graduated with the Capstone course. He's got a degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in strategic studies, and he also published numerous articles concerning detention operations and rule of law operations, and he's currently a PhD candidate in criminal justice policy oversight and administration. I'd say that Brigadier General Hussey sounds like an excellent candidate to serve as the new commander of Joint Task Force Guantanamo. Let's keep an eye on this one, guys. This could be it. Now, back to 2020 presidential nominees. Did anyone else think it was strange that Joe Biden decided not to run at the end of the previous presidential administration? Well, I suppose that I figured that Hillary Clinton was the anointed candidate, that Barack Obama wanted to see her as the person who was running for president because it really was her turn. That was the 16-year plan. Well, it's actually come out now that B.O. urged Joe Biden not to run against Hillary in 2016. He actually said to him that he concluded that Clinton had the best chances of anyone of winning at that time. So B.O. did not think that Joe Biden should run for president. He hardly needed to say it out loud for aides to understand that. The trick that summer of 2015 was finding a way to nudge Mr. Biden to stay out of the race without looking as if he was nudging Mr. Biden to stay out of the race. B.O., instead of speaking to Biden personally, ultimately had a strategist tell Biden he shouldn't bother. Can you believe that? Oh, what a dig. The president was not encouraging, Biden said, according to the Times. Biden claims that now Obama isn't endorsing him because he asked him not to. Speaking to reporters at an Amtrak station in Delaware, Biden said, "I asked President Obama not to endorse me. He doesn't want to. Whoever wins this nomination should win it on their own merits. Welcome to Delaware." I think that the fact that a former president is not endorsing his former vice president speaks volumes about what Hussein has to say about Joe Biden. I don't think they ever got along. I think that This was a match that was made simply out of convenience, and Joe Biden was never really a candidate for taking over the presidency if something was to happen to Barry here. But I can't remember a time when a candidate who was a former vice president that was running for president did not ask or was not given the recommendation or endorsement of the sitting head of state that they were serving under. So again, it just speaks volumes. I don't think Joe Biden has a chance, snowball's chance in HE double hockey sticks of winning this election. I certainly hope that he is the one who goes up against President Trump because, as I said last night in the live stream, the left is already starting to pick apart Joe Biden. He's not a progressive activist. There is a strong progressive activist base within the Democratic Party, and those people are not going to vote for an older white male. They're only going to vote for a woman or a woman of color, someone who represents some very small target minority audience that they can hold up as the ultimate foil for President Trump. But what they are not counting on is the fact that by doing so, they're going to be alienating fully at least half of the Democratic Party. I think that polls have shown that something like 20 to 25% of Democrats will not be voting for a Democrat if this turns into a social justice warrior, election. And I think that there are chances, that it very well may, but it's going to tear apart the Democratic Party. They cannot agree on anything. There is a certain portion of them that are far too left-wing, far too radical to be able to come together and support a candidate in a unified bloc so that they could, go against President Trump. President Trump is a lock for 2020, and I cannot wait to walk in and cast my vote for him yet again. Well, here is a very dismaying piece of news. The IRS, an illegitimate organization, if you ask me, has given the Satanic Temple tax-exempt status. But, of course, they've blocked conservative and pro-American groups for years. There is definitely something seriously wrong with this portion of the government, and I certainly hope that President Trump does something about this. Now, the blocking of these groups directly impacted the 2012 presidential election because the IRS targeted scores of conservative groups. Hundreds of conservative groups were targeted, at least 5 pro-Israel groups, constitutional groups, groups that openly criticized the Obama administration, at least 2 pro-life groups, an 83-year-old Nazi concentration camp survivor, a 180-year-old Baptist paper, a Texas voting rights group, a Hollywood conservative group was targeted and harassed, conservative activists and businesses, at least 1 conservative Hispanic group. The IRS continued to target groups even after the scandal was exposed, and 100% of the 501c4 groups that were audited by the IRS were conservative. Now, the IRS has given tax-exempt status to the Satanic Temple. Chicks on the right said, well, guys, the Satanic Temple is pleased to announce that the IRS has given it tax-exempt status. Yeah, it's been identified as a church. It's just as much of a church as the Church of Scientology. I would have to agree with that statement. The non-theistic Salem, Massachusetts-based satanic organization said it was pleased Thursday to receive the tax-exempt status after years of advocating for churches to lose theirs. The temple was founded to react to and restrict Christianity in public life and claims it does not worship the devil as depicted in the Bible, but advocates for the separation of church and state. Last time I checked, paying tribute to Baphomet is kinda, sorta satanic. Just because you're not singing songs to Satan himself doesn't mean you're not engaging in satanic behavior. This is evil manifest, you guys. I know that we live in America, and part of living in America is freedom of religion. This just goes to show, in my opinion, the strength of the satanic community in positions of power. Least of all, not the IRS. I think the IRS must be populated with these types of people. Now, the real question is the IRS going to stop targeting these conservative groups and these religious groups on the side of our God, or are they going to do it even to a greater degree now? Time will tell, and I certainly hope that President Trump does everything in his power to combat this evil that exists in our government. The tide has turned, you guys, and I must believe, I must have faith that President Trump is working to eradicate this evil from every level of our government, and that includes the unelected fourth administrative branch. Lastly, Kamala Harris was stunned and speechless after she was surprised by a conservative Chicana who confronted her at an airport for exploiting Hispanic children, and we've got video. Democrats are always shocked when real Americans confront them in public on their dangerous and abusive policies, but this was amazing. A conservative actress, she's a veteran and a Chicana, Anna Paulina, ran into Democrat Kamala Harris at the airport, and Anna confronted her on her dangerous open borders policies that exploit Hispanic women and children. Anna approached Harris at the airport, and Kamala immediately was stepped in by her staff to try and stop Anna from talking to her. Kamala, you can see by the look on her face, she was definitely stunned. Let's take a listen.
Wait, would you answer this question real quick?
No, they asked me to take a picture real quick.
Yeah, you're getting behind me. You're saying that you're fighting for women. No, I'm not going to back off. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. I'm asking her. She's saying that she supports Hispanic.
Those ladies asked her to take a picture.
I don't care. You're in my way. Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me.
Before you walked up.
She is damaging what is happening to Hispanic women and children at the border because she's promoting family reunification, which child sex is directly You're not commenting on this issue. You are directly impacting the Hispanic demographic in a negative way. You are directly impacting what is happening with the children in this country, and you are not doing what you're supposed to be doing as a representative, representing women in this country. Shame on you. You're not going to win.
Bravo, Anna. Kamala Harris is dead in the water. She's not going anywhere. She may rise to, certain additional levels of prominence within California politics, but as far as the national stage is concerned, Kamala Harris does not have a chance of going against President Trump. I would certainly enjoy seeing her on the campaign trail. I think she's just going to get torn up if she does have to debate with President Trump, and I would have to imagine that he would bring up her illicit affairs that brought her up to the level of political power that she's currently enjoying. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope that everyone continues to have a wonderful Sunday, and I hope that you begin an excellent week tomorrow. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.